Good day, viewers. Today, we'll be introducing printing on a Prusa MK3S. First of all, we need a file. A CAD file can be generated on Fusion 360. Now in the workspace, I have an already built model. A first strategy to achieve an STL document is first to go on File, all the way down to Export, eventually modify the name of the file, selecting STL file. We can also modify the location where the file is going to be saved, and then click to export. Due to Fusion 360 being a cloud-based system, it could take up to minutes to generate the STL file. A different strategy will be to go to 3D print. This option allows us to select a component, preview the mesh, and also to select the degree of refinement that we'd like to give our file. There are also other options on the refinement, and we shall select Send to 3D Print Utility, which in our case is a custom utility, and it's our Prusa slicer. Next is the slicing process and the generation of a G-code. Here we have our printing plate. The slicer we're using is Prusa slicer because it's much more compatible with Prusa machines. But before adding our STL file, we shall go to printer settings. Here we can see that our printer is already present in the system, but we may add a new one if required. Also, the nozzle diameter has to be specified, as the nozzle is a component that can be possibly substituted. In filament settings, we've selected a generic PLA with a nominal diameter of 1.75 millimeters. When selecting a specific material, the system automatically identifies an extrusion temperature and a bed temperature. Now if we go to the plater, we can add our STL file. The component will show up on the printing plate. On the left, we have a few options. The first one is to move by translation the component on the printing plate. Secondly, we can scale it, or we can rotate it, or select other faces to lay the object on. In this case, we're going to keep it vertical. The last option is to cut the object through planes. We can now modify main printing parameters. The layer height determines the degree of quality or speed detained by the print. Our filament is present, our printer is present. Supports may be generated everywhere or on given surfaces. For the infill, we can select the percentage of filling of our component. Other variables may be modified in the print settings section. If we go to layers and perimeters, we can modify the layer height we previously determined, the number of perimeters, or select spiral base mode. In Prusa Slicer, there are different views of displaying variables, from simple to advanced to expert, regarding the number of variables that we can customize for our print. If we go to infill option, we can select once again the infill and the type of infill pattern for our component. Back again to the plater, we can now slice the component. The system previews a layer by layer display of the component, as we can see the degree of advancement of the machine during printing. Different colors are relative to different parts of the component being printed. We can now export the G-code, change the name, and save it. Now we can go to the machine. To load filament, select Auto Load Filament. The machine will reach the ideal temperature. Once it is reached, we can insert the filament and the machine will start extruding it. the machine is going to ask us if the printed filament is of the desired color. We shall say no, so we can generate a new extrusion and avoid retaining previous extrusion residuals. In the cleaning of the printing bed procedure, we shall disable steppers first, and once these are disabled, we can take the tray out and clean it with a paper cloth. This procedure has to be repeated for every new print. For preheating PLA, we shall select on the main menu, Preheat, and select the polymer. In the same menu, the selection for Cool Down may also be selected. This will cool down both the extruder temperature and the bed plate temperature. We are now going to introduce the SD memory card and select the file. First of all, we insert the memory card in the system, and once it is loaded, we should select the folder and our model file. At this point, the print starts. But before that, the system will perform auto calibration. The extruder will come down onto the plate and perform a auto calibration process based on measuring the distance from the plate on 9 points. It might be necessary at some point to pause the print. To do this, there are options during print time that we can work with. The first one is pause print. This allows us to resume the print at any point given. In the early printing stage, live adjustment of the Z-axis may be performed manually to match the desired printing conditions. Furthermore, there are many other variables that can be modified during printing time. We can go on Tune and modify, for instance, the printing speed, the extrusion parameters, the bed temperatures, and many others. After printing, the component has to be removed. In this case, always pay attention to the temperature of the heated bed. Once it has cooled down, we can take it off and remove the printed component. Unloading the filament might be necessary after the print, either to stock it or to change polymer or color. To do this, we go to Unload and select PLA. The extruder will preheat the system, and once it reaches the temperature, we can remove the filament. It is a good practice to cut the end of the filament in order to favor future reuse.